All right, so I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight to my very obnoxiously titled reading series, which is born out of my stubbornness of not wanting to learn how Blackboard Ultra works. So rather than go through that, I decided to just sign up for Zoom Pro whenever I needed it for teaching. So a few months here and there. Tonight we have four absolutely incredible readers I'm really excited about tonight. We have Mark Leidner, Leigh Chadwick, Danny Caine, and Jennifer L. Knox. And let's see, it's a Zoom reading, so obviously keep your mics off while folks are reading. If you want to use the chat, please use the chat to give praise. I'll be posting bios and links to their incredible books, so please support these poets, buy their books. If you don't already have them, you absolutely need them. All right, so we will get started with Mark Leidner, whose most recent book is the poetry collection Returning the Sword to the Stone, published by Phonograph Editions in 2021. He's also the author of two feature films, 2019's Empathy Incorporated and 2014's Jammed. His story collection, Under the Sea, was published by Tyrant Books in 2018.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for tuning in and coming to this Zoom reading. I'm just going to read a few poems from this new book, Returning the Sword to the Stone. And I'm grateful to the other readers and to David especially for inviting me. I'll start with a poem called 8 Things I Hate About Me. I hate it when I spend my life breeding and training elite sled dogs, only to end up the crusty old villain in some younger musher's story. I hate it when I'm giving an academic talk at my alma mater, and my old mentor is a no-show, causing me to question the value of my scholarship. I hate it when I humiliate a nerd in the lunchroom or bathroom, only for them to become cool later, humiliating me at a house party or a school dance. I hate it when I'm trying to avoid seeing a dive bar right behind me, just as the last city bus barrels by in the rain, reflecting in its strip of moving windows the dive bar's neon signage. I hate it when I spend my youth decrying the hypocrisies of adults, only to become one who conceives of hypocrisy as the very pinion of consciousness. I hate it when I plant a kiss on each bicep in a dive bar, mocking a dock worker with biceps twice mine in diameter into arm wrestling me, only to be all the more humiliated when I lose. I hate it when I fall off my yacht and the weight of all the mobile gaming consoles in my cargo shorts pockets pins me to the seafloor. I hate it when I'm in geometry class, intent on disrupting the lesson with inane and off-topic contributions, only to be moved to silence by the beauty of the Pythagorean theorem. I forgot to start my timer, so let me just do that real quick. Okay. Thanks for Lamowing Benjamin. And Aaron, thank you for saying this book rules, if you're talking about this book. And even if you're not. This book, this poem is very short. It's called Opening Day. If they ever really did clone dinosaurs and built a real Jurassic Park, It would be funny if a tiny little asteroid arrived and destroyed only it. This I'm going to read a series from a longer series of poems called Salad on the Wind, and they're all sonnets. I don't know if they're actually sonnets. They're 14 lines and they rhyme, but it's actually maybe the two least important things about a sonnet. So it is what it is. But I'm not going to read them all, but I'll read a few. For whatever reason, I got really into rhyming, and it just took me over. So that's what this poem was doing. Salad on the Wind. A religion that gives us heaven first. An earthquake extending a round of roulette. A picture of liquor that quenches your thirst. A poem so glib you start to sweat. A cathedral with a flesh-toned steeple. A moonbeam caught in a slug trail glyph. A hotel room with a stained glass peephole. A shattered urinal at the base of a cliff. A pigeon stuffed into a baby bottle. A chihuahua asleep in a collection plate. An all-glass casket for a supermodel. A magnolia growing out of a sewer grate. A salad made of dead leaves and rain. A joke a mime breaks their silence to explain. Chum, I always feel the need to explain this word, even though probably everybody knows this word. Chum is food that they feed to sharks when they're hunting them. Shark hunting with American flag colored chum. A gavel hammering a grain of sand. A cannibal choking to death on a thumb. An hourglass on the witness stand. Art supplies stuffed into torpedo tubes. A Monet frisbeed into the sea. Mars and the moon terraformed into cubes. A Rubik's cube growing on a grapefruit tree. A warehouse full of moldy fedoras. A border only a moron would close. A shark moralizing to its remoras. A scarecrow torn by empathy for crows. Centaurs playing kickball well. Water boiling in the toilets of hell. That's enough of those. There's many more if you find those appealing. This poetry book is kind of like a grab bag of forms. So there's there's a lot of jokes or would be jokes, I guess. There are those sonnets in quotation marks. This poem I'm going to read is called Youth is a Fugitive, and it's a list of aphorisms. There's also some narratives like stories or there's also list poems, but youth is a fugitive that thinks it's a hostage. You know the labyrinth has two exits if you can feel the wind. Hell is an orgy of everyone you know. Heaven an orgy of strangers. Just the faint glimmer of the possibility of love instantly gerrymanders your entire past. An exotic analogy to which no one relates, but to which people wished they related, will always outcirculate an actually apt analogy to which people actually relate. A child surprised that a neon sign isn't hot the first time they touch one knows how it feels as an adult to achieve one's goals. The amount of muffin left stuck to the wrapper when you open it is the percent of your childhood that was the way you remember it. Crime is a dream justice has when it sleeps. Boredom is the cruelest aphrodisiac. All you need is love to have a home in every moment. And all you need is poetry to have it be a mansion. Desire rudders a ghost ship. Believing in God is like believing in an endless stream of letters following Z. Loving anything more than yourself is like a misquote that clears you of plagiarism. Cowardice is the fear of suffering, courage, the fear of wrongdoing. Nothing is purer than gratitude, and because it's so pure, it's the first thing to blow away when the wind blows. Anything is possible, but everything is too expensive. History is stranger than truth or fiction. The eyes are teeth that see. Grace is a diaper you never have to change. Mourning a more convincing dream. Life is long for a brief time, then brief for a long time. The problem with irony is that it is too soothing. It suggests a pattern to tragedy and therefore mitigates the terror that tragedy is random. Were tragedy patternless, we'd be meaningless, and all the ironies of literature are a dam against this despair. Let's see. I think I'll close with a longer, but it's like technically longer, but it goes fast because it's a story. It's called Volunteering, and if any of you have ever had office jobs, or I guess any job really, but this job that inspired this poem was an office job. Actually, it was a teaching job, and I was in an office, but I forgot I was also in the classroom. But the part of the job that I hated was the office part. Volunteering. There was this duty they needed somebody to volunteer for, something of no apparent use to anyone. And it was also clear that I was the one who everyone expected to do it, because everyone else had paid their dues, but I was new and hadn't volunteered for anything yet. So as they were going around the room asking us if we wanted to volunteer, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Cave into the pressure or protect my time. Honestly, I was leaning toward volunteering, thinking that working my way into their good graces might get me out of some real work somewhere down the way. And I'd almost decided to volunteer on that basis when all their eyes landed on me. They just kept staring at me, waiting for me to volunteer, knowing I would if only they could wait me out. And I lifted my hand as if I were about to, only to draw it back down in one smooth motion, pretending to scratch my other arm, as if I were an idiot who didn't even know how to just sit there without giving the false impression of imminent speech or action. It was a total letdown to everyone else in the room, and I could feel our morale beginning to crumble around me like invisible pillars. Eventually, the meeting agenda moved on, and there I sat in a reverie of self-congratulation, having successfully evaded yet another of their attempts to guilt trip one of us into whiling away precious hours of our lives in pursuit of an objective they claimed was indispensable, yet refused to make mandatory. A policy that to me belied that the duty had nothing to do with the duty itself, and everything to do with them wanting us to seem as self-sacrificially busy as possible, which was the opposite of what we all actually were, which was doing the bare minimum necessary to maintain the standard of living 1,000 times greater than everyone else on the planet to which we felt entitled. And then for the first time that morning, I had an epiphany I hadn't had before, that even if one never volunteered for anything, by virtue of merely having attended these meetings, one was volunteering to bear witness to the sacrifice of hours offered by anyone else who raised their hand. enough participation in the ritual for me to feel complicit, if not in the offering itself, then in its sanctification. And I felt a great emptiness well within me then, there at the conference table, as if this epiphany, rather than being added to my wisdom, had been subtracted from my dignity. And then a new and even more unpalatable viewpoint cobbled itself together in the fog of my mind as the meeting coursed on. Something about the supreme hypocrisy of taking pleasure in resisting the enterprises of an organization I clearly despised, yet clearly not enough to simply leave and move on with my life. And in that moment, I knew I was a coward and a parasite who would have weaseled out of any duty, whether farce or noble, whether the solipsistic circle jerk of a privileged few or a beautiful act undertaken in service of a universal humanity. And I hung my head in shame and self-admonishment there at the conference table, the rictus quake of a conscience that had tried and failed one too many times to wake. But then just as suddenly I swung my head back up. I'd known this about myself all along. I've worked for years, in fact, to insinuate myself into the folds of this organization, not for the money like everyone else, but so the dead weight that I would have added to any whole of which I was a part would be borne by that which ought to atrophy and spared from that which ought to flourish. And it was on the crest of this wave of heroic self-contempt that I mentally coasted through to the end of the meeting. But then at the end of the meeting, they brought the whole thing back up again, asking someone to please volunteer and looking straight at me when they did. By now, I was feeling cocky and decided to speak. Look, I said, normally I would volunteer. It's just that right now I can't. I have a million other things to do. This was secretly hilarious to me and secretly infuriating to everyone else in the room, most of whom really did have a million things to do, and all of whom knew that of everyone there, I had the least to do. But in behavior typical of these sorts of meetings, no one had the temerity to point that out. So I just stared back at them, like they were a distance I was refusing to enter. Then it switched and I became the distance they were staring into and refusing to enter. The face-off lasted for what felt like forever, though in reality it was probably less than a minute. Eventually a hand went up in the back of the room. It was one of those people who really did have a million other things to do, volunteering. Thank you for your kind attention and patience, and for your inaudible applause. It means a lot. And thank you all again to the other readers. I can't wait to sit back and relax and let your words flow over me. And thank you to David for inviting me once again.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for getting us started and hopefully setting the tone for the night. Let's see. Definitely pick up Mark's book. I mean, not only are the poems fantastic, but it's also a beautifully designed book. Phonograph is definitely doing some good work. Let's see, our next reader is Leigh Chadwick, who is the author of the chapbook Daughters of the State and the poetry coloring book This Is How We Learn to Pray. This Is How We Learn to Pray, illustrated by Stephanie Kirsten. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Salamander, Passages North, Pithead Chapel, the Indianapolis Review, and Hobart. She is a regular contributor for Olney Magazine, where she conducts the Mediocre Conversations interview series. Leigh's debut collection of poetry, Your Favorite Poet, will be published by Malarkey Books in July.
Hi. So I want to start out by saying that Your Favorite Poet, we're going to have a flash sale today. It ends at midnight. So if you guys know, you should totally buy it because you just have till midnight. So that out of the way, let's get to some poems. And if you know me, I'm not super organized, so they're just strewn about. So I'm just going to grab them randomly. So the first one I grabbed randomly was How to Be a Poet Days After Finding Out Your Husband Cheated on You. On the patio, smoke another Turkish silver, toss the butt into the backyard. Imagine a forest fire as the cherry fizzles as the grass stays grass. Go inside and throw away what's left of the pack of Turkish silvers in the trash. Microwave a frozen burrito. Fish out the pack of cigarettes from the trash. Take 2 Xanax. Forget about the burrito in the microwave. Stare into the bottle of Xanax. Take a shower. Turn the water so hot your body turns Dante. Don't bother drying off. Still wet, get in bed anyway. Think this is the last time you might ever be wet. Try to masturbate. Get close 3 times, but don't finish. Give up. Turn on the TV. Watch part of an infomercial for a knife that can cut through a penny. Change the channel. Catch the last half of a commercial for a movie called Space Death, where a knife cuts through a star and then the screen goes black. And then the tagline, this Thanksgiving, not even space is safe. Think you would rather have a knife that would cut through a star than a penny? Think about not thinking. It's 5 p.m. Fall asleep. Dream the 2 of you in his Volvo, parked in her driveway. His forehead pressed against the steering wheel. His throat slit from a knife that can cut through a star or a penny or maybe both. And just to be vulnerable, I keep drinking this wine because I do have anxiety, even though I've taught in several states and facilities, South Philadelphia, Mississippi Delta, but this is still a lot for me. So I don't have a problem, I promise. Or maybe I do, but you don't know me, so it's okay. This one is I built a time machine and pushed Samuel Colt off a cliff. Spoons are my second favorite utensil. If you climb a fence, you'll find you will be at the top of a fence. The same goes for trees and boulders and the guy named Steve who tends bar next to the Better Bar in Des Moines. The calendar on my iPhone says it's either the end of the world or the first Tuesday in May. It's more likely that you'll get shot in the face than fall in love. I'm not sure that's true, but science is taking a nap and the sink is in the kitchen is clogged. I miss David Berman, but I miss Elliott Smith more. I can't remember where I was when I heard Pavement for the first time. It doesn't matter. I always turn the sound up when we kiss. I never forget my daughter, but I'm always losing my keys, so I attach my keys to my daughter. I build a time machine and go back to 1836 and push Samuel Colt off a cliff. When I get back, I eat a bowl of banana pudding. I go online and adopt an elephant. It only costs $12 a month. This one. This is Frankie Cosmo is a good band name. I always wait at least 45 minutes after therapy before having sex. Every spring, I pick up a second job planting pollen and dandelions. On Thursdays, I listen to the same Frankie Cosmo track on repeat as I follow myself into the afternoon. Most mornings, I wake up in a bed full of smaller beds. This morning is one of those mornings. You are next to me. Light trips through the blinds. Leigh, you say. You, I say. You ask if I knew I was sleeping while I was sleeping. I don't answer. My eyes are too busy tracing your lips, the morning of your mouth. You say my name again, followed by something about a bagel. I think about my name, Leigh, 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 Leigh. I like the way it slips out your throat as it's coated in margarine. Yes. Okay, this one's called chocolate chip pancakes. I want to be polite in the way people who sneeze in their elbows are polite. So I always look both ways before driving into the ocean. I feel useless holding an empty wine glass, so I'm always buying more bottles of wine, which means I'm always stumbling into walls and falling into my bathtub as I wait for my hairdryer to steady myself. I didn't even finish it. I often wake up expecting to see rocks shaped like atomic bombs, or maybe atomic bombs shaped like rocks, or the devil crawling out of a sewer grate, his pitchfork a forest fire of the color of California. Sometimes life is just a whimper. Sometimes life is nothing. Sometimes, after I finish my chocolate chip pancakes, the devil gives me lightning bolts shaped like toothpicks. I want to be polite in the way automatic doors really stop being automatic. So I tell the devil, thank you, as I take a lightning bolt and close my eyes, waiting for the world to melt. Let's see, how much time we got? This one's cover band. I would totally fuck up Jolene from that song, Jolene. I'm from around where Dolly Parton lives, so you kind of just have to say that. This one's a massive thoughts. I go to bed a Jehovah's Witness. I dream Armageddon filing its taxes. I dream people climbing out of the dirt and dusting off their cell phones. I bathe in ampersands and wake up a Scientologist. I sit on a televised couch. I tell my husband, sit with me, name me a crater, give me the sun. I say, call me sensible magic. People are dying and it's not even tomorrow yet. There's too much guns and guns. It's 2021 and my t-shirt still reads, I'd rather be at the fire festival. Every night I wake up with a mouthful of dirty bathwater. I hire myself to place myself sitting on a couch, watching a shot-for-shot remake of a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. I never cover my mouth mid-moan. I often wake up screaming in reverse. I start a Daniel Johnston cover band between my hips and cover the pillows with memory from the afternoon at the lake. This is flash sale. The new fall collection at Gap Kids comes in the choice of cotton or Kevlar. During recess, the kids play duck, duck, gun. Down the street, a few miles over, past the bridge that hangs above the river that's named after a state that has no reason to exist, a fifth body bag in as many days is zipped shut. A hip shatters, a cheek stretches apart, molars bleach in the sun, families, nothing but glass in veins and dirty laundry. Families, nothing but a fistful of hyphenated hearts scattered along the sidewalk. The next one is I delete every emotion that was never worth capitalizing. I can't remember the last time we fucked to the silence of alliteration. Minutes turn to miles and miles turn to decades. In 10 years, we will be 10 years older. We've sharpened our teeth into knives. We, the teeth, chewed through the insurance copays and the congestion on the I-95. We, the second coming, we, the militia, we, raw and hidden from the wind. There are searchers where searchers are meant to be. I delete every emotion that was never worth capitalizing. I hum "This Tornado Loves You" while you press against the kitchen sink. The dog is howling, but we can't hear him. Someone is shooting someone, but we're not paying attention. I tell you, your sweat smells like sweat. It's a good thing. You tell me you can't remember if you paid the electric bill. A river runs down my left thigh. You probably paid it, I say. This is a library of limbs. The Second Amendment says I am the Second Amendment. The pastor says thoughts and prayers. The wind says I am tired of carrying the smell of death. Some senators say too soon, too soon. Some senators say now is never the time. Some senators say now is the only time. The Second Amendment says everyone should buy a gun out of the trunk of a car in a Starbucks parking lot. The gun show says we're having a BOGO sale on body bags. Wind says I am also tired of carrying the sound of death. Mississippi says put a gun in your waistband when you go to Kroger to buy a gallon of skim and a package of Pampers. Tennessee says let's be more like Mississippi. California says puff, puff, pass. Texas says at least we're not Florida. Colorado says, well, fuck. Colorado says you didn't see the library of limbs. Colorado says sorry about the spilt blood in the produce aisle. Colorado says the popcorn is on us. The ghosts say there is no more room in the haunting place. The wind says still, it's the smell of death. That's the worst. The South says it's lonely. Second Amendment says I will always be the Second Amendment. All senators say thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers say sorry, we are so useless. Jesus says if I had a gun, that fucking cross wouldn't have stood a chance. Okay, this is the last poem. And this is The World is a Wilt. I've decided to prepare for the end of the world. So I spend the afternoon packing a survival kit. On the front of the survival kit, I write, do not open, beware, wild snakes. I don't know why I wrote wild snakes, since domestic snakes are just as scary. So I cross out wild and scribble big over it. I pack the survival kit with a week's worth of weather. I pack it with my calcified heart, the third aisle of Costco, the night we melted the duvet. I pack the submittable password, the submission feed, the narrative, the chat book my daughter promised to write when she learns how to write. I take a break from packing and fill my coffee maker with fresh grounds of hazel. I eat a bluebird. Outside it's June. I go for a walk. The trees remind me that the color green still exists. I pick up a tree and put it in my back pocket. When I get home, I pack the tree in a survival kit. I have enough room in the kit for one more thing. I decide to pack the memory of our third date, the picnic at the lake, the loaf of bread, the ducks, your body pressed against my sundress as my thighs turn sunset. And that's it.
Thank you, Leigh.
Guys.
And if you didn't see in the chat, there's a link to Leigh's pre-order for her debut collection from Malarkey. Definitely jump on that. If you haven't noticed, there's kind of a theme tonight. All of these poets have made me laugh. And we need to laugh a little bit right now, I think. Just a little bit, just for an hour. We can go back to not laughing for a while. Our next reader, Danny Caine, is the author of the poetry collections Continental Breakfast, El Dorado Freddy's, and Flavortown, plus the book How to Resist Amazon and Why. His poetry has appeared in Had, Lit Hub, Diagram, Hobart, and Barrel House, and his prose has appeared in Lit Hub and Publishers Weekly. The Midwest Independent Booksellers Association awarded him the 2019 Midwest Bookseller of the Year Award. He is a co-owner of Lawrence, Kansas's Raven Bookstore.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Mark, Leigh, and Jennifer. I'm honored and thrilled to be in this lineup. I'm having a lot of fun already. So here we go. I'm going to read nothing but new stuff, 10 new poems. These are all from a manuscript that's mostly done. It's called Picture Window, and I'm going to start with the title poem, Picture Window. Watching the stump grinder spit to life, I realize the dream was never tight jeans and cigarettes, atmospheric fog from grates under streetlights. Let someone else make out against a graffitied wall. The kids can have the cramped restaurants that feel like secrets, the mystifying dishes that aren't cooked but invented. Take the A train. Really, you can have it. All I need is a picture window so I can sip coffee and watch a machine chew the fuck out of a big ass stump. This is the Turtle Room's Student of the Week. Shout out to the parents in the room. This is a poem about parenting. The Turtle Room's Student of the Week. I was pretty proud of the poster I made when my kid was the Turtle Room's Student of the Week. But the next week, Braden's poster was twice the size of mine. And the week after that, Kaylee's poster had flashing lights. And after that, Cole's poster had a Bluetooth speaker playing Baby Shark. And then Brindley got one of those sign installations on the lawn by the parking lot. And then Channing's parents brought in a 72-inch flat screen that played a deep fake of Channing as Elsa while Let It Go played on a loop. And then Arya's parents simply stood outside the classroom all week wearing shirts that said Arya's mommy and Arya's daddy. And then Kyle just brought in an 8x10 photo of the billboard his parents put up at mile marker 204. So now I'm on the phone with Venture Outdoor Advertising, but while I'm on hold, let me ask you, do you know where I can get a deal on a giant block of marble? This is in the living room watching travel shows with beautiful cinematography again. Barcelona, sure. At this point, I'd even take Texas Roadhouse. Are you celebrating anything tonight? Yes, we just burned the rest of our masks. Of course, I'd take a fast train anywhere. My latest adventure was switching milks. I long to be confused by strange menus, but I'd happily settle for not knowing where the light switches are. Today, I had to Google cheese wife. My son yelled instead of eating lunch. In the living room, I found an ace of hearts that's not ours. I got stuck trying to remember the last waiting room I was in. An old lady ate increasingly large animals, and her survival is in doubt. The lamp decided to work. I can't say if I've left the house. My son entered the room chewing something. The sunset looked like spaghetti corrupted Tupperware. Then night returned, like the McRib. So part of Picture Window is I've been kind of in dialogue with the work of contemporary photographers I admire. El Dorado Freddy's is a book I wrote with my friend, photographer Tara Ray, and that inspired me to kind of incorporate photography a little bit into what I write. So this poem is called Ideas for Poems, and it's after Larry Sultan. Because we're on Zoom, I can do show and tell. But Larry Sultan has this amazing project called Pictures from Home, which is this mix of kind of mining his old home videos, photographing his parents, and some autobiographical writing. But the chapter 6 of this book begins with a list of ideas for photographs. Things like dad looking like Johnny Carson or at the water fishing. And the last one is pictures of me with a question mark. And I just love that. So this is Ideas for Poems after Larry Sultan. Toddler learns to fly. A life-size billboard of my childhood home. Cat barfs again. Balancing marriage, family, and work in the midst of what they call difficult times. But would anyone want to read it? Poop humor. Eating books like cereal. I want my parents to live forever. A baby's first word is privilege. A kite in a brisk Febreze. Scooping metaphors like a litter box, surprise airplane in the driveway. The constant fear my family resents me because I am too stingy with my attention. A house with too many light switches. All right, this next one is a long poem. It's got 7 sections. It's not super long, but it was inspired by my friend Martha. I was at her house in Atchison, Kansas, and she was telling a story of like when she and her shithead friends in high school would hang out at night. They used to buy chicken nuggets by like the dozen, like 50 chicken nuggets, and have fights with them in her backyard. So I started with a chicken nugget fight and then ended up all over the place, including Dave Matthews Band. And so this is Excuse Me for Being Alive in the 90s and Having 2 ears connected to a heart. 1. The spare suits are in the pickling crock downstairs. Borrow one if you need it. You can change by the workbench. Nobody will see you, probably. Alex and Martha had their first kiss over there. Hurry up, though. These chicken nuggets aren't going to throw themselves. Lord knows what else they did down here back then. Now they're kids, spray each other with the hose, screaming across the same backyard. Something about cycles. I don't know. Where's the sunscreen? 2. Beer for drinking, trees for climbing, skin for heat, the neighbor's bushes for sparks from the fireworks that fell, the night for running, the air for screaming, wet feet on cold concrete. It was hard to tell whose leg was touching mine. I've forgotten some of those people, but not all. 3. I heard God through the radio at the ice cream stand in the parking lot in the otherwise empty strip mall. Girls waiting for the end of their shift sighed, the window open. The breath of air conditioning froze me. Again, she asked what I wanted. I wanted to hear Crash Into Me, so I'd know Holly would, don't ask, just say a prayer over your waffle cone, Rocky Road. 4. The space between lovers and friends, the space between the cars in the parking lot line after the Dave concert. Martha's asleep beneath a pile of shirts in the back. A limo driver next to us passes a bag of chips across the space between our car and his. The space between my knee and yours, buzzing, impossible. Humidity like a mouth. Surely you know how close your leg is to mine. Charges in the air. Storms may form in your area in the next 120 minutes. 5. The radar map in a teenager's head of where you can park mom's minivan at night without the threat of flashlights. I keep in touch with most of them. Well, at least I keep their cities in my weather app. 6. Martha holds her legs and laughs. Her feet are in the pool. She shines. It's more of a splash pad, really. I'm falling asleep. It's only 11 a.m. Where did the kids go? I feel like I can hear them. Where did the summer go? I feel like 7. A pool float shaped like a pizza. A pool float shaped like a donut. A pool float shaped like the minivan where I once tried to kiss Holly across the armrests, skin frosted with air conditioning, bare boned and crazy for you, crash into me. Just don't crash the van. My mom will kill us. A pool float shaped like my mom's fear that I'll never move back home. Okay, this next poem is called Six Flags Worlds of Adventure. I read this news story about a guy who bought a Six Flags season pass in order to eat a free lunch and dinner every day because it comes with a meal plan. And he saved enough money doing this that he like paid off his student loans and paid for his wedding. And so again, I started with that and went elsewhere, but this is Six Flags Worlds of Adventure. I'm told the cheapest way to eat is to be clever with a Six Flags meal plan. Seems worth a try. Complicating things is the fact that Six Flags closed in 2007, but I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll even see Aunt Pat while I'm there or Prince. Being the past, I'll know my way around pretty well. I'll know the right time to walk onto the Big Dipper. It'll be an afternoon whose only thrill is a bumpy drop down a hill I've screamed down before the hill becomes termite and drone fodder. One of those summers, Holly worked in mascots. I'll choose that one and wonder if she's Bugs or Tweety or Pepe Le Pew that day or what she's wearing under there or if she'll ever decide she wants to give me a chance. She didn't. I didn't know that then. I'll still wonder as I walk toward the hot dog stand in the shadow of the double loop, pausing to look closely at Elmer Fudd, ready to surrender to one of life's joys, eating something unremarkable for free. Sated on something sad, I'll tear ass on my Target bike across a parking lot the size of a subdivision to a house where my parents still live. Couple more. 3 more. This is poem with first and last lines stolen from my toddler. This house is Ohio. This sidewalk is Ohio. This song is Ohio. Papa's car is Ohio. Where is Ohio? What is Ohio? Ohio is over there. Ohio is upstairs. The billboard is Ohio. The lawyers from the commercials of your childhood are Ohio. They're also dead. Ohio is moving to Baltimore. My family is moving to Ohio without me for a while. Ohio is a factory of sadness. The factory with the flame is Ohio. The rails to trails path they've been trying to build for years is Ohio. A building that used to be a Pizza Hut has a sign that says future home of a vacant lot. That sign is Ohio. Ohio is closed today. All right, and then to close, I've got 2 short ones, both inspired by photographers again. This first one takes its inspiration from Sandy Carson's book, I've Always Been a Cowboy in My Heart, which is great. Kind of an investigation of Americana. Here's one that shows up in this poem. I don't know if you can see it. It's a billboard of clouds up against the sky. Really witty, great work, Sandy Carson. This is What Makes a House after Sandy Carson. You can hang a sign that says possibilities, but it takes more work than that. A cow will stand next to a sign with a cow on it, but only if she wants to. A billboard of clouds may well blend with the clouds. You can staple the word free to a tree, but that doesn't mean anyone will take it. You can shrink wrap a minivan, I guess. A chair may feel more at home in a creek than in your home. You can put a bed in a room, but that doesn't make it a house. All right, thanks again to David and Jennifer and Mark and Leigh. This has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to hear Jennifer Knox, one of my poetry heroes. I'm really thrilled and very glad I don't have to go after her. And thanks again to all of you for being here. This is called A Sonnet Waving Goodbye. It takes its inspiration from Deanna Dykman's project, Leaving and Waving. She's a Kansas City photographer who for decades, every time she visited her parents as she left, she would take a picture of them in the driveway waving at her, which is, yeah, this is A Sonnet Waving Goodbye after Deanna Dykman. That I no longer know who sleeps in my childhood bedroom. That I didn't know my last time in that house was my last time in that house. That the word home has different homes depending on where I am or who I'm talking to. That someone could be looking back at me through the window. That someday I'll leave, turning to wave, I'll see no parents, just a garage door. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Danny. I actually read Flavortown last summer when I was feeling kind of blah about poetry. And it actually inspired me to teach a class called Poetry But Fun. And to take, just to have more fun with poetry. And also, I just love Guy Fieri.
Thanks, David. Sorry I didn't read any of those.
I got the book, I
You
got
gotta
to
read the book, yeah.
It's just motivation for everyone else to buy that book. Make the people want more. All right, our final reader is Jennifer L. Knox, whose most recent book of poems, Crushing It, published by Copper Canyon. Of that book, V. Joshua Adams wrote, Knox's poetry performs embarrassment of the abject in a spectacular way, while also grounding her performance in the particulars of what one might be embarrassed about. Think Sharon Olds on psychedelics. She is currently at work on a traveling public art installation dedicated to increasing awareness of micromediation. She lives in Central Iowa and is the proprietor of Salt Liquors, a small spice blend company.
Thank you. Thank you, David, Paige, Danny, and Mark. This is so much fun. And I have a feeling right now, V. Joshua Adams is in this Zoom room. So I put you in my introduction tonight. And for some reason, I feel like I'm showing up somewhere in your car that I stole somehow. So, yeah, nice to see everybody. So these are some poems from the new-esque book, Crushing It. This first one is called Irwin Allen versus the Lion Tamer. I got the idea for it. It was slow coming. It took about 10 years to bring these two things together, Irwin Allen and the Lion Tamer. It started with, and I feel the need to explain this because it's so impossible. But Errol Morris's movie Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control, in which there are 4 men and they all have very distinct, unusual jobs, and one of them is a lion tamer. And he said when he was a little boy, he was very fond of Clyde Beatty movies, who was a famous movie lion tamer. He said back then we didn't know who would win in a battle of man versus nature. And that rang every bell in my head because the punk band Killdozer has a song called Man versus Nature about Irwin Allen, who's the master of disaster films like The Towering Inferno and The Poseidon Adventure. And so I was always trying to bring those two together. And finally I did. This is called Irwin Allen versus the Lion Tamer. We used to love lion tamers because people really didn't know who would win in a battle of man versus nature. Back then, all the stories ended in death, our death, by mauling or snake bite or dog bite or being struck by lightning, smothered by an avalanche, charged off a cliff, carried away in the talons of an eagle, inhaled by a whale, stung by a scorpion, swarmed by killer bees, gored by a rhino, poisoned by berries, pricked by a sticker, swallowed by quicksand, beguiled by a black cat, gobbled up by a witch. So imagine the relief with one flick of the whip and up, the skulking lion stands on legs like a human. Its toothy protest, no big thing. After all those years of fear, I'd laugh at it too. And that's just what people did until there were no more lions to laugh at. But Irwin Allen knew death doesn't live in a thing you could kill with a gun. It's not the heat, it's the hubris. The fire that wipes the city out begins in birthday candles and the happy huff behind them. The storm that flips the cruise ship starts in the sea that rises up to fill the empty sky. An airplane crash begins not in birds, but in feeders we've stolen the seed from, certain nobody can see us. I can't read and read these and like read a chat or anything like that. I don't know how y'all can do it. So it could be on, the chat thing could be on fire. I'll never know. Sorry. So if something happens, wave at me. This is a poem about the Golden State Killer. And it's called Finding a Drawer Full of Driver's Licenses. The Golden State Killer stole trophies from his victims, such as flatware, jewelry, photographs, and driver's licenses. 20 years after his crime spree stopped, police began to release lists of missing items in hopes that someone, a family member, a home health aide, would recognize an item and report the owner, who would then be in his 80s. In a statement to the public, a detective said, "So if you find a drawer full of driver's licenses at your uncle's house, give us a call." Finding a drawer full of driver's licenses. All expired, mostly women in their 30s when the photos were taken. Now they'd be in their 60s or 70s. A few men frowning under uneven mustaches, some faces scratched out to white blurs in the plastic. How funny was fashion back then. Pointy collars, wide as windsocks, all that argyle, hard hair, eyeglasses so thick. Why, It'd be like peering out of the freezer through a narrowing window of ice. Back then, nothing defrosted itself. They babysat their appliances, untethered the thick black cords from the walls, and waited till the water ran off wherever it wanted. Unmarked Tupperware and ice cube trays left behind. And this is called Pretty. And it's true story. Pretty. A head taller, but a year younger than my girlfriends with their bouncy boobs and full-blown rose bushes. They knew how to squeeze into tight white zip-around jeans without getting their pubes snagged in the metal teeth, clenched from tag to belly button. You couldn't wear underwear with those things. My tight white jeans were too short and gave me a camel toe. My clit popped like a knuckle against the seam. In skates, I was even taller, hunched, mouth agape or talking shit, squinting, always this close to falling, flailing, arms out, neck deep in an incoming tide. I couldn't skate sideways or backwards or even fast. So when the lights dimmed and the disco ball lit up and the boy on the black skates, the kind you couldn't run at the rink with the red toe stops, rolled up and held out his hand, He's asking you to skate, my girlfriend said. Duh, dumbass, hawed another and pushed me hard from behind. I took his hand and he gently, in a way that showed he knew I didn't know how to skate, led me into the current. Nobody gets too much heaven by the Bee Gees. I looked down at my flabby tits, all nipple, not at the boy with blonde hair I'd seen at the rink before, skating for hours, backwards, jumps, but always alone. I felt sorry for him until I looked up and realized he was much older than me and all the kids around us. The song ended. He asked me to skate again and I said, no, I'm tired, but thought, you must think I'm pretty fucking stupid, which is exactly the same thing I think now whenever a stranger holds his hand out to me. True story. This is called Wolverine season. Oh, honey, are you okay? I asked the woman in the bathroom, soaking wet as if she'd just emerged from the shower. Yeah, maybe too much rum on an empty stomach. She wiped her mouth with her hand and left. In the sink, waxy red flecks of lipstick. That woman over there just puked up lipstick in the bathroom, I yelled in my friend's ear over the Black Sabbath tribute band. Write a poem about that, she yelled back and smiled. We were up late for a school night. It was all part of the new regimen. The documentary I'd just seen about death said rocking out is actually good for you. And rocking out to Sabbath? Dude, we were gonna live like forever on the bones other animals passed up. True story. Okay, I got two more. This one is an homage to my greatest influences, my greatest influence of all, which is Warner Brothers cartoons. And it's called Today on Untamed Iowa, the Land of Big Ball Heavers. Untamed Iowa is a show that my husband Colin and his friend Dave used to make up when they'd talk about potential scenes for Untamed Iowa. Today on Untamed Iowa, the land of big ball heavers. Their antlers are all rack, 12 points and up, so heavy on their heads, every moment feels as if a hollow-brained linebacker's rushing up to sack them in a rage of barks and two tight copper socks leaving marks. Whoa, have we already gone too far afield? Eaten too much string to thread our way back to Foggy Marsh, where big ball heavers roam? No, there they are. See their soft ears perk as we approach. Their pupils flush and swallow their blue halos whole. Ooh, that's not good, actually. They only do that when they're underwater or duress from beavers/beaver fever. Swing your stick and shout, shoo! Sing owly songs of heaving balls to soothe them as they shoo, of balls as big as buxom bunt cakes in their holes. Yodel in the holes as all the big ball heavers flee. Adieu, white tails. Sorry for your rapid hearts. Bye-bye, black eyes. Okay. True story. Okay, that's dumb. I should have ended on that, but I'll read one more. This is from my Aunt Marilyn. And even in this little Zoom room, if she was here, we'd all be having a funner time. Funner. It's called Marilyn, Every Day We Wonder. Marilyn, every day we wonder what you'd think about all this. I imagine you crashing through the inaugural barricades or flying a stolen helicopter into a wildfire with a margarita gripped between your knees. Remember, gridlocked on the 5, you winked at a bearded dude on an asphalt roller? I'd only seen women wink at men in movies. He leered, I'm like, you laid. And you drawled, why don't you get that piece of shit out of the road? Shock splashed across his face. Lock the doors. Crazy bitch, he roared and punched our hood, clueless how close he was to getting his ass shot. We found the loaded gun under your mattress. Smith & Wesson, cowgirl style, swirly pearl handle, and the serial number filed off. We'd like to take it out at parties. What a cute gun. We also found several transistor radios and a box of old weed. Cheers, Auntie. With one phone call, you scared my scary Brooklyn landlord into fixing my deadbolt. You were 6 states away and a 72-year-old woman. There's a pack of kids down the street in a house that's falling apart. We never see an adult. No matter how cold or dark it is, they're always playing outside with a new puppy. We have no idea where the old puppies have gone, but if you were here, we know there'd be no more of this new puppy bullshit. Thank you. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Jennifer. I can feel the laughter and the smiling in the back of my jaw right now. I really needed that. Thank you. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the reading. I want to thank Jennifer and Danny and Leigh and Mark again for joining us and for just being fantastic poets, bringing joy and fun back into poetry. I really appreciate that. Let's have I don't know, some kind of weird silent Zoom round of applause for all of our amazing readers. And thank you all for tuning in and watching. I hope you'll come back, I think Friday, April 8th, maybe. I think that's when the next one is. I'm not sure yet, but I'll know for certain. I guess follow me on Twitter to be aware of when these readings are going to happen. And yeah, thank you again to our readers. Thank you to the audience. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.